welcome to our first Blueprints program of 2024. I'm Bodine Sanders, your producer and host. Joining me today is Sheila Weaver, the owner of She Loves Sports. Sheila has a long career in sports, in the sports industry. She began as a student athlete. She's also a Hall of Fame coach and an advocate. Welcome to the program, Sheila. How are you?
I'm great, Bodine. So glad that I have the opportunity to talk to you and your audience today about my career and what I've been doing with girls and women in sport. Thank you.
Well, we are excited to have you. So welcome, welcome. And as I do with all my guests, I open up with the same question. And sometimes I change a few words, but I'm going to start you off with, please share your blueprint and your positive DEI perspective based on your experiences in sports.
Well, I feel that as someone who's been in sports for quite a while, that it's very important that we have lots of different perspectives about sports, and you can only gain additional perspectives by meeting and enjoying relationships and also experiences with other people from different backgrounds. Otherwise, you're just looking at sports through one lens. And so I found that the ability to do that has brought so many people together, especially in understanding how each person is really unique.
Well, we've had quite a few conversations, and I am impressed with your background and all the things you've accomplished. So let's share with the audience your origin story, however you want to start with that, and give our audience some background.
Okay, well, I would say that my background is from the Midwest. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, which I guess at that time it was very unusual to have many girls playing sports. Come from a background where this was prior to a lot of the affirmative actions taking place, and there really wasn't a lot of emphasis on girls playing sports. So coming from Des Moines, Iowa, I was really looking at opportunities to be successful in career. It wasn't even necessarily sports. It was a matter of, what do you do next? My parents came from Missouri. My dad was working in a rubber factory, and my mom was a stay-at-home housewife. So our opportunities were presented to us at an early age, in the sense that we had a great home environment, but we also knew that we had to make a way for ourselves. And so as a result of this being encouraged, I went to a technical high school. So I really wasn't involved in sports, I would say officially, if you want to call it that way, in terms of youth sports, other than going to playgrounds and playing tennis and playing basketball, tetherball, and things of that sort. But I just seemed to have a knack for sports, and I also loved it. So from that, I went to a technical high school, studied stenography, shorthand. This goes way back before you even probably audience hadn't heard of some of these terms. But I was also encouraged to play golf. Again, this is a technical high school. There weren't that many African American kids there. But my English teacher, who was the golf coach, encouraged me to play. And that was my really first introduction to organized sports. And as a result, I found that I liked it. I found that it kept me active, and also I was able to advance in the sport. And as a result, decided that sports was going to be my major in college. From there, I got a scholarship to go to Drake University, which is in Des Moines, Iowa. And that's where my sports career all began, as a physical education teacher and coach.
Well, Title IX, I'm not sure how much Title IX had play a role it played in your life? Did it play a major role or any role?
I would say that it played a major role because at that time I was finishing up my degree at Drake University. And I found that there were other opportunities available because of Title IX, where institutions, meaning educational institutions, schools, were looking for Black students and Black women, Black males who had some background in sports and were able to come in and help um, organizations recruit new student athletes because of the inclusion aspect of being wanting to have more people of color, as that group often called people of color, to their faculties. So that allowed me to go from Drake University to get a graduate assistantship at Kent State University, where I actually ended up teaching undergraduate students a variety of different sports. And also, I decided to write my graduate thesis on the opinions of Black and white Kent State students on professional athletes, baseball, basketball, and that's so I definitely felt the impact and the need to to help kids and have better understanding among faculty and students and staff about what it meant to be a Black person, male or female, in sports at that time.
Well, let's talk about the growth of women's sports. You've obviously seen the growth of women's sports and the positive aspect it has had on sports and young girls and young ladies and then women.
Uh, yes, I definitely have through my own family history. Myself, as I was mentioning, I played golf. I was a good teacher, and eventually I got into more of coaching just through the kinesiology and just learning more about playing sports. And there I found that there weren't that many girls and women playing of color um, sports, but the one that I particularly liked was volleyball. So with volleyball, I was trying to introduce that. After I left Kent, I went to SUNY Binghamton and taught, and I went to other places. But eventually, I landed in Washington D.C. And as I was teaching fitness and some other things, I was encouraging uh, moms to enroll their kids, their daughters, into volleyball. And I started a club program. And so my one of my key objectives was to introduce the sport of volleyball to young ladies who hadn't been exposed to it. And as a result of that, my teams, which were primarily African American girls, we did very well. We won 5 independent school championships. We won a lot of awards through the Chesapeake Region Volleyball Association. And my daughter ended up, well, both daughters, my youngest daughter is Division I champion for Long Beach State, and then my oldest daughter, she played at Clark Atlanta, and now she's a principal in Atlanta, Georgia. So from my own experience, I could see what it did for my family. So I wanted to make sure that other kids and families had an opportunity to see what was available to them.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. How does team sports? Here's a question for you. How does team sports? And I believe in this. You know, I'm a firm believer in the sports foundation, also a spiritual foundation, because they play a very important role in young students' development.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested. How does team sports contribute, from your perspective, in building positive relationships?
Well, of course, the word team means that in order to be successful, the team and not the individual has to perform well. So when you're a member of a team, you have to be aware of other people's um, ideas, how they react on the court, what you see them doing that you can either impact in a way that's positively or negatively. And that's as a coach, as a parent, or a fellow student athlete. So what I always try to to do in the programs that I have is just to make everyone aware that this is a sport, a team sport, and that you cannot do everything on your own. You have to listen to people's ideas. You have to try to process what they're saying. And if you can't get along, you're not going to get along on the court either. You're not going to be successful. So, what can we do as a group so that we're listening to others? We're wanting to find out ways that we can all be successful, whether it is on the court, off the court, impacting the family, impacting the student body, and bringing the community together. And I feel sports is definitely one of those um, programs that has done that throughout history in various ways, whatever you might call sport. And I think we saw some of that last night too, because this was the Super Bowl. There were
Yes.
people just so, you know how it is at that time. But it's very, it's thrilling. It brings out the best and the worst. And so when you see the best, you want to compliment the best, and when you see the worst, you want to point that out and see how we can make that something that we can learn from. Because it's all about lessons. I see sports as lessons of life.
And I think, not just think, I know that this is an opportunity for the business community to learn from sports organizations, because some people are still stuck in thinking that sports is just an activity. No, sports is a business, right?
Yes.
We are learning every day, even on the college level. We've learned, obviously, on the pro level, college level, with the NIL, and all the things that come along with it. But I think it's starting to matriculate down to the high school level because of the way technology and business opportunities are presenting themselves, right? And
Right.
so I think sports, now, again, I know sports is a great example, so I'm going to agree with you. Um, how do you think we should, or the business community should, adopt or open their minds more with following the example of sports? Because again, I know sports is a business, and you can't win a Super Bowl not just on the field, but it has to be. You have to, it has to, the front office,
Mm-hmm.
every part of the organization has to be on the same page. And so you just sometimes you folks who are, watching sports from, their couch, or their media rooms or whatever, they don't see that there's a lot more business development and relationships and so forth that are happening behind the scenes, right? They may hear about it, from a general manager or whatnot, but we know it takes, in a large organization, all these organizations are large. They have a large number of people that working for them in different departments, from
Mm-hmm.
HR to ticket sales to promotions to on the field, maintenance, all the above. Parking, they're all part of one team. And if they're not on the same page, folks aren't going to get along, and they're not going to be able to win. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
No, I think you said it perfectly because sports is a big business. I was just checking just because I wanted to mention this, because I've been involved with girls and women's sports for quite a while, that the amount of money spent on girls and women's sports was $1.28 billion, which is up 300% over 300 years. And I see that just in terms of like one of my daughter's friends who she played with. She's now one of the head coaches for a professional volleyball league, which is in San Diego.
Hmm.
And so we see different opportunities cropping up for girls and women. But what you're saying is so true because you have publicity, you have marketing, you have advertising, you have the groundskeepers, you have everyone who handles the uniforms, who keeps the equipment, you have the trainers, you have the athletes, student athletes or professional athletes who are, they do what they do best, but they're managed in certain ways, which allow them to perform at their best. And sometimes that's not it. It's not totally intrinsic that you're not actually going to know all the time what's best for you. So the ability to have guidance from people who've been there before and who can guide you to success. And that's what major organizations I see are doing now. They're not just relying on one coach. They have coaches for individual aspects of the game. They have the mental training that's important so that you can perform at your very best. And it's just a massive organization. And because of that too, and the appeal that sports has, you can see why so many fans are attracted to it, and how the sports has grown with various types of sports, not just on the field, but now we have electronic esports and
Hmm.
various other springboards from just being in the sporting community.
Well, I like to talk about, this is the essence of blueprints. I like to talk about how diversity, equity, and inclusion is a positive thing, and sports is a great example. Let's focus a little bit on the equity,
Mhm.
because I think again we've come a long way in women's sports. I'm sure we can, as a whole, can improve, but it's all about women feeling and
Mhm.
and receiving, because they've earned it, the equality that is necessary in particular sports. Let's talk about that inequality in the word.
Well, when I first started She Loves Sports, I had a slogan which was to play or not to play. Is that a question? Because there was some interest, again, people didn't really see sports, especially for girls, as something that was going to have a long term benefit. So I think now that girls and women are feeling that they have rights, they have opinions, they have the ability to do well at various types of sports and in other arenas of sports, that my whole slogan for She Loves Sports has become our time to play. And so you can see that throughout the country. You can see it on TV, just in terms of the numbers of girls and women's sports. You can see records being broken at stadiums. I think recently Nebraska had over 90,000 fans in a football stadium where they had a volleyball match.
I saw that.
And
Yep. Yep.
so, yeah, so that was on the news, and Forbes has quite a bit of information about the growth of girls and women's sports. So it's really just enlightening for other people who perhaps haven't even noticed that. And it's waking them up to opportunities that are available for their loved ones, their daughters, their friends, that before they didn't even give it a thought. So America, because of the business, I feel too, is really seeing for the first time what girls and women can do without being confined to certain roles.
I think of Dick's Sporting Goods. They have a
Mm-hmm.
female
Great.
CEO. I see their marketing. They're, if anything, they're definitely equal or being equal in their target marketing
Mm-hmm.
for female and young girl students, student athletes. So again, I see sports industry as a great example, right? To
Yes.
show other businesses and businesses in certain categories, be it, nonprofit, for profit, in other industries. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, with volleyball being my main focus, there's now Facebook groups called Black Girl Volleyball Magic, where it is addressing the needs, like really of all girls, but coming from the perspective of a Black parent or someone who is trying to find opportunities for their daughters, either through finding the best training, finding athletic scholarships, finding how they can merchandise to certain markets. We see jewelry cropping up, hats, bags, shirts, all kinds of things, which now are targeted at girls and women or targeted football players or soccer players. So the targeting is really to not only enhance, I feel that they're enhance how they feel about themselves as an athlete in this particular sport, but also it shows that there are a variety of avenues that you can be involved in: basketball, track, wrestling, women are playing football, and know that it's just not singular. It's not just playing, as we were talking before. So I just see the impact is being tremendous. There's more openness, there's more acceptance, and with that becomes more awareness about other people, other nationalities, other organizations, and you aren't really feeling as though you are being left out. And that's, I feel, what diversity and the inclusion aspect are really important in making a social impact on communities, cities, and of course the world. And we see that Super Bowl last night.
Well, there's no silver bullet, but we have to make more of an effort, and I think we are, as a whole, making an effort. I think I heard a statistic, and they might have played it during a commercial, and it said something like 1 in every 4 or 1 in every 5 young ladies or girls quit sports before they're 14. And that's a shame because they're and it could be a number of reasons, right? They're not getting the support that they need from home, the encouragement, maybe peer pressure. There could be, a number of reasons why, but we definitely want to see that change. And I think there are organizations like Dick's Sporting Goods and others, and your organization and what you've done, and folks who've walked in your shoes and you've walked in other shoes. And but there's a way to combat that and change, or at least create a path where it can change. What do you think about that?
Well, as you mentioned, you were talking briefly a little bit about NIL
Mm-hmm.
and the impact that it's making on even at the junior high school level, of course, college level, the curiosity about what it all means,
Mm-hmm.
and how can my child perhaps be included in that whole area. The opportunity to, like you said, with Dick's Sporting Goods or even local brands who are looking to enhance their marketing appeal to the local community, and also give back to the student athlete who locally is in their area. I know my granddaughter, she's going to Penn State, and she recently had a NIL deal, the first one in Maryland, with a company called College Hunks Hauling Junk. So you would think that's maybe strange at first, but you look at most of the funds that student athletes are getting are going to be local, because not everyone is the big $1 million athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But locally, you can bring an impact, and you can affect the community. You can affect the boys and girls who are in that neighborhood, their
Mm-hmm.
parents, where they can see that a student athlete has done well, usually both, as an athlete and as a student. And I also made an impression and wanting to give back to the community. And they have an impact on the young kids that are watching them on the field. So of course, they're looking too at what they eat and what they drink and what they wear. And so this is all part of the expression of sports and how it can impact student athletes in a positive way and the community. So you will have some negatives because
Mm-hmm.
you're always going to have some naysayers about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look to how can it make it benefit everyone who's involved. We can all learn from each other, and I think that's what diversity, inclusion, and equity is all about.
Well, I think, and I agree with you. There's always two sides, right? But I try to stay to the positive side and look at it as um, it's going to encourage more students to become student athletes or remain or chase their dreams as longer than they were willing to, prevent them from quitting. Um, it's all about building confidence as well, right?
Right.
Um, it's going to keep student athletes again in that space longer because I think about my story. I was not on full scholarship, so it would have the opportunity may have helped me if there was an NIL opportunity back then. I'll never know, but I'd like to think it might have played a role in helping me manage my career. Um, because then I could have focused on studying a little harder early on. Like I didn't really start studying until I knew um, that my playing time was not going to increase, right? So I had to focus on, okay, it's getting close to graduation, in a year or two. Let's focus. But in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, um, I was worried, of being homeless, food insecurity, all those things that we didn't talk about as athletes until this pre NIL conversation started. I mean, right? Some of the athletes who were playing in NCAA tournaments and so forth say, "Listen, we're going to bed hungry, and and these guys were on scholarship, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about that. So, and then you had the unfairness in the locker room in terms of the fitness center a couple years back, right? The girls fitness center versus the guys. So again, we're through trial and error. We're getting better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think we're a great example for businesses and the business community. Um, but I
One of
also think,
the
go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to mention to you one of the things that I think is very important with student athletes, and I'm working with some partners on that, is the idea of parents are getting more involved, and because they want the best for their child, but they also are sometimes a little miseducated about what's the best path to take their child uh, to get to an NIL or to get to a Division two or junior college, and and sometimes the reliance on counselors can be good, and it may not be so good. The same thing with coaches that you may have. I always tell them that the window of, if you want to call it, window of opportunity for um, kind of have a better understanding of what your opportunities are, sometimes are very short in the sense that, um, say you're in junior high school and you're trying to really determine what is the best sport for me. Okay, one coach may say this, another may say that. There's one that you may favor, but because sports now is very analytical too, as well as I like it, but it may be you like it because perhaps you haven't been exposed to another sport, which may or may not be a sport that you're better suited for, and you can determine some of that through testing student athletes and preparing them for how they, I want to say, measure in terms of with other student athletes at their age. There's lots of different events and combines and things that are cropping up now because sports is big business. Where parents sometimes assuming that they go here, they run here, they go, that a coach is there that's going to see their child. Okay. And I know now, and so are many other parents are frustrated by that because they're spending quite a bit of money pursuing this dream, which is theirs and their child's. But you can pursue it in a way that's more educational and more informative if you have something to like benchmarks. And so I'm really been looking at that, how we can advise parents in a way so that they aren't feeling like they're wasting a lot of money. And sometimes they are, and how they have a role and how a lot of the time they can do some of this fact finding on their own with the right information. Um, so I just wanted to add that because sports is big and more people are jumping in for various reasons because there's money involved. But parents, I want to encourage you to try to find out more about how you can really do more of the testing approach. Like if you had a 50-yard dash and you had 50 kids who were 8-year-olds and they ran the dash, okay, now you know if your child is fast, not fast, in the middle, or what they have to do. Okay, so it's a lot of information that's out there. Sometimes they just need to be able to get a better sense on the best way to approach it and how important it is into their decision making.
Well, we've come to the end of our show and end of our program. And I want to thank you, Sheila Weaver, for all your experience and your thoughts and the information you shared with our audience. We appreciate you.
Thank you, and I appreciate being on, and I hope that everyone who sees the program and also continues to watch your series understands how important it is for everyone to be able to listen, to try to understand, and bring other people's perspectives into the discussion.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. So we've come to the end of our program. Thank you for your time. Stay tuned. There's more to come.